You're listening to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman on the Land of Israel Network.
Hello and welcome to Inside Israel Today, here on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com. We counted down to the election for a long time. Now we're counting after the election. Now we're counting up and then also down again. Because yesterday, on Monday, the president, Reuven Rivlin, gave Benny Gantz, the leader of the Blue and White Party, 4 weeks to form a government. He told him, please don't use all 4 weeks. Please form a government soon. He told him, negotiate with Netanyahu. He wasn't really saying that Gantz has to form the government. He made clear that it would be also okay if Netanyahu forms the government together with Gantz, even though Gantz officially has the mandate. He told them, get working. He, in his speech to the Knesset's opening session on Monday, the president, Reuven Rivlin, spoke to the only 2 members of Knesset who were down below him because they were swearing in only 3 MKs at a time because of the coronavirus. He told Netanyahu and Gantz, please, just one favor, give the people of Israel a government soon. And so as we speak right now, we are in a holding pattern. We are waiting for things to happen. We don't know when they will happen. Yesterday, we asked all day, are there meetings? When are there meetings between Likud and Blue and White? Only toward the evening did it come out that they actually met in the morning, and that the meeting went well. And the fact that we weren't told about it, the fact that we weren't briefed about it in any way, is a sign that maybe there was progress in that meeting. When there were public meetings that we were invited to, of Likud and Blue and White, where they just shouted at each other and then came out and talked to us for a long time about how bad the other side was, it was pretty obvious that they weren't going to make any progress. Yesterday, the fact that they did quietly behind the scenes was a sign that maybe they are making progress. Or maybe it was just a sign that due to the coronavirus, the press isn't allowed to go anywhere anyway, so they might as well not bother. I don't know. I have no idea. Only the people who are actually at the meeting know if progress was really made and we're on the way to having a unity government, or whether it's all a game and a sham and it's the beginning of many long weeks. It could be 4 long weeks of Gantz and then him unable to form a government. Could be then 4 weeks of Netanyahu and him unable to form a government, and then another of those 3 weeks like we had before, where any member of Knesset could form a government. We are very much in a holding pattern right now. The same thing goes for me. As I said on my last show, coming back from America, I would be entering a quarantine period. This is 14 days that I am apparently following as I'm supposed to. I am in a house that no one is in. I am not making contact with people. And this is very difficult. I live to be with my children. I can't see them. I can't hug them. I can't be involved in facilitating all the homeschooling efforts that there are, that the Education Ministry of Israel is putting on. Thankfully, I will be doing my own homeschooling period that I am looking forward to on video. But that is the extent of my involvement right now, and so I'm in a holding period too. As are thousands of people throughout this country who are following the quarantine rules as best as they can. Now, there are, of course, people who are quarantined for having contact with someone who may or may not have the coronavirus. I am in quarantine because I committed the crime of going to America before there were rules saying that if you go to America, you'll be quarantined. I went to America to visit my mother, who is not well. That is no crime. I am paying a price for that of 2 weeks of isolation from the world, which is not so bad, but also from my children, which is absolutely awful. And I feel terrible for the people who have it much worse, from the people that can't see their children for a longer period of time because of the way the travel restrictions are right now. I feel terrible for the people who actually have the virus, or for the people that came into contact with people with the virus, for people that are caring for people that have the virus at great, great risk. My sister's a doctor, and she was around someone who at first tested negative, but then tested positive. She's quarantined too. And there are people who are going through a very, very difficult time right now around the world. Who am I to kvetch when I'm in a quiet, empty house? There are people who don't, as much as me, enjoy time with their children, who are now off from work because they can't go to work and somehow have to be keeping their kids busy all day. And I'm sure that that can be aggravating. And so I feel bad for those people too. I'm sure that they would be very jealous of me having 2 very, very boring weeks. It's up to all of us to make the best of this situation that we are in right now. And to just hope that the scientists who are working on a vaccine, we mentioned in the last show that there are people in Israel who are working on a vaccine in a lab in northern Israel in the town of Tel Chai. We woke up this morning to reports of another company in Seattle who are working on a vaccine which, with the rules of the United States, even if they had it ready, would only be usable in about a year, year and a half. Thanks a lot. Here it's a lot quicker. We hope that the doctors treating people who have the actual virus, especially the ones who are very sick, will find the right way to treat them. I know that they started treating them with various things that were used for malaria, and then things that were used for other viruses, with limited success. I hope that they will have more success. I'm not sure how I feel about the law enforcement people. We've had videos of arresting someone. I don't know whether he had corona or whether he was around someone who had corona. Was arrested on the streets of Tel Aviv and in a very aggressive kind of way overnight. And when things are done overnight, it makes people uncomfortable. Overnight, the government of Israel decided to have the Shin Bet security service involved in not only following people, but entering their phones and being able to check what people have said, what people have sent, in order to find out whether they have violated the corona restrictions, I guess. That's kind of scary, though I understand why it would need to be done. I don't understand as much why it had to be passed in the middle of the night. You would think that after Netanyahu faced the criticism for his trial being postponed in the middle of the night, that he would stop having cabinet votes at 1:30 in the morning. But again, I understand that there needs to be intelligence used to keep people safe. And that is what is being done right now. There are precautions being made that no one would have dreamed of even a few weeks ago. And what's done in Israel tends to be done in America afterward. The restrictions we're currently hearing about in the state of New York are things that happen already in Israel. And every night that you hear Netanyahu in his nightly press conference, you're going to be hearing the same things from your state governor or your mayor of a city in the United States shortly thereafter. And so again, as I said on last week's show, I can be proud of Israel for being ahead of the curve in trying to stop the spread of this virus. But it is also very challenging, very difficult, and very sad what's going on right now in Israel and all around the world. And we will continue to pray for a much better situation. On the days that they take out the Torah, we read a prayer about asking God, limnoa mashchitu magefa, to prevent there from being plagues. And let's pray together. Stop this plague. The world has already had enough. After the break, we'll talk more politics. Stay with us.
Yishai Fleischer describes what it's like to live in quarantine.
Take it very seriously, and let's stay healthy, and let's help other people stay healthy.
Join him and his wife Malka Fleischer for a special coronavirus update and humor as well.
A little bit of humor.
Well, that's how Jews get by.
Right.
We got gel, we got alco gel
In
all
every
up
room,
in our house.
every room.
Click on The Yishai Fleischer Show on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
We're famous for our humor, us Jews.
Hashtag Corona humor.
Is there a blessing for the czar?
And we're back here on Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network, on the landofisrael.com, where, as we said, we are now counting up from the election. The election was on March 2nd. It is March 17th. It's been 15 days. And we have no actual evidence that we are closer to having a government today. We have not had a government since the 24th of December of 2018. We have had a caretaker government. And that caretaker government is limited in what it can do. And we have seen, in general, over the last 15 months, that governments are an important thing for people to have. And so we are anxiously awaiting when we will have a government. So let's talk about the possibilities that there are. We see the most likely possibility as being a unity government to this day of Netanyahu and Benny Gantz serving together, as much as they don't want to. But after 3 elections of blue and white running on a campaign of anyone but Bibi, they are finally acknowledging that they will have to serve under Netanyahu. That serving under Netanyahu in a time of crisis will not make them look too bad. That their voters will forgive them for that. That people understand that when there are people quarantined all over this country, when emergency rules are in play, that emergency rules can be in play in politics too. And so the most likely scenario is there will indeed be a unity government in which Netanyahu will go first. They talk about an emergency government, maybe like 6 months or so, and then they'll start over in coalition talks. I think that is a less likely scenario. I think if they're going to bite the bullet and do it, then they're going to do it for real and try to put something in place that would last 4 years. Maybe have Netanyahu in power a year. If that was the Likud's opening position and blue and whites was 6 months, then maybe it'll be a little bit less than a year. Maybe it'll end up being, maybe if the Likud's opening position was 2 years, maybe it'll end up having to be a little bit more than a year. Maybe Yom Ha'atzmaut will be the time that you have that changeover in 2021, in May. But that is what seems to make the most sense right now. Now, in order to bring about that unity government, both sides have to play tough. The Likud continues to put blue and white down, to make fun of them. Blue and white continues to move full speed ahead as if they're forming a minority government. In order to form a minority government, they would have to rely on the support of the joint Arab list from the outside, which is a very controversial thing to do. And there are more than 2 members of Knesset inside blue and white who say they don't want to support such a government. They need all members of Knesset in blue and white because there are only 61 members of Knesset who recommended that recommended that Gantz form a government. So even having one fall off would make it impossible for there to be a government. You need to have one vote where you have 61 vote in favor. After that, you can have a minority government as long as you have 61 preventing the government from falling. But they don't have those 61 for one vote. So that doesn't seem to be possible right now. Yet they're moving full speed ahead with efforts to try to get rid of the Knesset speaker, to try to take over Knesset committees that are crucial for the parliament to function, to pass legislation on things like term limits, and preventing a member of Knesset who's under indictment from forming a government, automatically removing a member of Knesset who is indicted, or a minister or a prime minister. All of those things are moving ahead as kind of a threat to Netanyahu that he better compromise now and make a deal, or they can move these things forward. Whether they can, it's actually quite unlikely. But they're moving forward anyway in order to improve their bargaining position in the talks that are taking place. Already this morning, there are reports of now Likud and blue and white playing hard to get again. That after the reports last night, that maybe there was progress in these talks because they were quiet, that now actually they're maybe not even going to meet today. I hope that is not true. I hope that they think about what's going on here in this country and realize we need a government soon. What's going on right now is something that should really make the politicians wake up and say, let's meet nonstop until we make a deal. Let's have a government by Shabbat. Let's not let there be another weekend where people don't know what's going to happen, where people don't know how their politicians are behaving, where people don't know what the next restriction is going to be, and half the people, because they're not represented in the current government, express great skepticism about these decisions. This is a time where unity is needed in order to reassure the people that they're all being represented right now. And a lot of people don't think that. And that is very difficult. So that is another challenge that unity can help solve. I want to talk about yesterday's ceremony at the Knesset. So we had the strangest swearing-in ceremony there ever was in the Knesset, because normally you have a quick ceremony of the members of Knesset being called in alphabetical order by the Speaker of the Knesset, who reads the rules for swearing in, and then the member of Knesset, one by one, they say the words Mitchayev Ani, which I guess I promise rather than I swear, which would be more of a religious thing, I guess. So they stay away from that. I commit myself, I guess. Instead, you had 3 members of Knesset go into a room where there were 6 or 7 people, because the restriction was no more than 10 people in a room, even if it's a very large room. Each time, the Speaker of the Knesset had to explain the rules to the 3. And after a while of there being 3, then they had 1 member of Knesset. The first who was sworn in on her own was member of Knesset Orly Levy, who is the only member of Knesset from the Gesher party that ran together with Labor and Meretz, and then she pulled out of that bond. And so it was appropriate that she came in there alone because she has no friends. At first I really thought that was why she came in alone. But it just turned out that there weren't more members of Knesset to come in at that given point. After that, others came in one at a time. There were 4 members of Knesset who didn't even come to the building to be sworn in, most of whom because of corona restrictions. Minister Bezalel Smotrich apparently was on his way when they finished and they sang Hatikva. He is considered a member of Knesset without being sworn in this time. But it was just so strange. You had your trumpets, you had your singing of Hatikva, you had your red carpet, but you had no joy. You had a ceremony that was what we say in Hebrew, Latzet lidei chovah, to fulfill the basics of your obligation. That wasn't festive. There was no l'chaim, no raising a glass afterward in the Chagall hall of the Knesset. There was no ceremonial picture of the Knesset taken afterward, and we're still waiting for there to be a ceremonial picture at the president's residence that there is when a government is formed. Form a government anyway, even if the picture will have to wait. So that is what's going on inside Israel today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that next week on my show, which I'll apparently be doing from this very couch in an isolated building, that there will be a lot more to say about Israeli politics. Maybe I'll even say that there's a government. Maybe I'll be able to say, hey, they that drive-in test for corona that Donald Trump talked about. Maybe we already have it here in Israel and I've been set free. And maybe I'll be doing a show when I'm back home hugging my children. I sure hope so. Hoping for better days. From here in Israel, it's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.
This week on Israel Uncensored with Josh Haston, an interview with Rabbi Zev Shandilov, who says despite the coronavirus outbreak, the focus shouldn't be on what we can't do, but on what we can.
Organizing something, reading something, learning, talking to people on the phone that we may not normally get to. We saw an unbelievable amount of rain this winter, with the Kinneret almost full, and a time where we're being told to use an inordinate amount of water now to wash our hands.
That's Israel Uncensored with Josh Haston on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.